Oh, I think it's recording. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just to get started. Hi, Ken. My name is Amber, and it's nice to meet you again.
Mhm.
Would you mind giving us a quick introduction to who you are, and all that about you? Everything that's important, I guess.
Well, sure. Everything that's important might be pretty short, but anyway, the yeah, my name's Ken Hayes. I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD, all from UCI, all of them. Uh, let's see, I was in aerospace for 30 years. I worked at Boeing and Rockwell International before that. I was senior fellow at Boeing for about 20 years, which is a, a real good position to be in. There are only about 60 or less than 70 senior fellows in the whole company. And I worked at the Rockwell Science Center. Um, I was chief scientist of the Anaheim site at Boeing for a while, and I've been with the mentoring program since it began, which is I think going on about 2 decades ago. So I've had a lot of mentees over the years.
Sounds like you have plenty of experience and wisdom to give.
Well, that's the hope.
All right, let's jump right into it. So first off, how did you become interested in this field? And I guess that would be aerospace in your case.
Well, actually, I was interested in physics. I was interested in just learning about the way things work and the way nature works and the way things are. So I decided, well, gee whiz, I'll get a PhD in it because uh, I think knowledge in that area is cool, and I want to flog it, all the way to the frontier until I actually do something that nobody else has done before, even if it's, not particularly earth-shaking, just something new. And then after that, I'll be educated enough that I can, probably get a job. And it turned out that at the time I was looking for jobs, aerospace jobs were the ones that were most available. And turned out after getting an aerospace job and then learning what that world was like, initially it was kind of strange, and I at the end kind of grew to really enjoy it.
Yes, it sounds it wasn't like a clear cut, straightforward path that you followed.
No, I know of very, very few people that have followed any kind of a clear-cut, straightforward path. I mean, you may intend to do that, but sometimes the world has other plans, so you've always got to adapt as things change. I did not plan on getting into aerospace. In fact, when I was a young man, I thought it was a terrible thing to do because they were, building weapons, and Ronald Reagan was president at one point, and we were maybe going to blow up the whole world if the Soviets didn't do it first. What wasn't a particularly happy place to be, but that's not what happened.
Yeah. All right. Next question. How do most people get into this field, and what are the common entry level jobs?
Ah, so if you end up with a degree in physics, uh, a bachelor's degree, for example, um, you'll probably end up, if you want to go into aerospace or something like that, working in a lab doing some kind of measurements, or doing some kind of calculations that are fairly straightforward as an entry level position in engineering or physics. And typically, your title in most industrial places will be that you're an engineer, even though you don't have a degree in engineering. You've got a degree in physics or math or chemistry or something like that. They'll call you an engineer, and that was typical for most of the positions I had. I was at one point chief scientist of the Anaheim site at Rockwell or Boeing, but that was the only time I had a title that actually included the word scientist. All the rest of the time it was engineer or member of technical staff or something like that.
Really interesting. So, broadly then, in your experience with all the mentees you've had in the past, what's like the most common, or like what are the common jobs that they got after getting their physics degrees?
Uh, there's been a lot of mentees over the years, and a few of them have gone into academia, not many. I mean, gone on and one or two of them have actually gone into university teaching. I think more typically they end up doing engineering of one form or another, software of various kinds. Some people get into software so much that they actually become software engineers. On the other hand, there are a lot that end up in the lab. One in particular, one of my early mentees actually ended up running two fairly large laboratories at her company. And that was kind of cool. They have electron microscopes and ellipsometers and things like that, making measurements. And at the end of her career, where she is now, I think she's actually supervising people that do that and running the lab, and she doesn't do any hands-on work anymore because she's too high up.
Sounds like a great place to be.
Yeah, and I think she's having a lot of fun.
Sounds like fun. All right, next question. How relevant is your undergraduate major to your job now, or I guess the job that you had, jobs, plural?
Right, right. Well, right now I'm retired, and I'm just to stay off the streets. I'm teaching geometry at a middle school for fun. But in terms of aerospace, I'd say it was very highly relevant. Uh, I used the principles of what I learned daily, all the time. I mean, just general physics knowledge, the things that I picked up in the lab, even in the advanced lab as an undergraduate, when I was a lab rat when I first started out. Um, I mean, some of the same instruments we used to use at UCI were in the lab. I mean, oh, I know how to use this one. I did this for years, that kind of thing. So I'd say it was pretty relevant. There are pieces of it that were not. Didn't use a whole lot of advanced quantum mechanics from graduate school in designing infrared detectors at Rockwell, for example. But I did use the principles of it. But the real simple stuff, I never had to get into that. I know people that went on, not my mentees, but other people that went on and did work with colliders, and they use that stuff. But more typically, it's not that common.
Okay. And next question, what skills, abilities, etc., are essential to success in your jobs?
Um, well, I think you need, decent knowledge and intelligence in physics and related disciplines, math. Some software programming is always a good idea because you'll end up processing your own data sometimes. I think more than that, uh, there are things like, I never allow anybody to force me to modify my understanding of a situation to present it the way they want to hear it. um, I'm trying to be the interpreter of nature and physics to them, and I'm trying always to be very honest. And if they don't like it, I won't change it if I think it's not right. So that there's a certain integrity that comes with it, and that's very difficult at the beginning because there's a lot of pressure to look at things certain ways if they're business plans. But on the other hand, after a very short while, you're viewed as honest, and people will come to you for the unvarnished truth. And then your main problem is you just have to be very careful to be sure that, or that I don't personally guess. I can tell you what my opinion is, and I can tell you when it's a guess, and I can say, well, here's what's actually going to happen, and I'm as sure as I can be that that's right, or this is what I think is probably going to happen, or here are the possibilities. I'm not sure which one will happen, but you always have to be scrupulously honest.
Good qualities to have. All right. And next question, what is something that surprised you most in the first couple of years on your job, or even in the last couple of years?
Well, I'd have to say this is a little odd, but I thought that the people that I've been working around would be very, very conservative. And especially when the first job I got after I got my PhD and a little before I got it was at the Northrop Corporation. And I was working on the guidance system for the MX missile. And I just assumed that everybody was going to be a warmongering hawk if they're working on anything to do with guidance of missiles and weapons and things. And that was not the case at all. I mean, the engineers all went out together, and we actually used to get lunch at Chuck E. Cheese together. while we were working on our guidance calculations back at work. It was a great group, and you couldn't say that there was any one type of person that worked there.
That's really interesting. I definitely had the same like misconception because my parents also work in the aerospace industry. So I kind of have seen all of that as well. All right. And are you able or were you able to establish a work-life balance in your field?
Yeah, although I actually had one of my bosses tell me that that's not a good way of looking at it. Work-life balance. He said it was work-life blend. And what he meant by that was that there will be times if you have a really good position, where, I need to go home and do something real important. I had a pipe explode in my house and I have to be home, and as long as I don't have any big meetings or anything like that going on, I can do it. On the other hand, if there's a problem and I need to stay a little later, then I really should do that. Okay. So and if there's an interesting problem, sometimes I will get an idea while I'm taking a shower. So it's I never, gee, I wish I had a larger percentage of my time on home things or a larger percentage of my time on work things. I say if you integrate it all up and add it, the percentages felt about right. But I'll tell you an interesting example. The first smartphone that ever came out was something called a BlackBerry. They're pretty obsolete now. But I got my first BlackBerry because my boss, who was the vice president at the time, told me um, in an email message that I needed to have a presentation ready at 8 o'clock the next morning. But he sent me that email message at 7 o'clock the previous evening. And I had already left work. And I just happened to check my email. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even known. I would have walked in with nothing, right? And I said, Daryl, to my boss, if you expect me to read my email in the evening in case something important comes up, that's fine. But I'm going to need a way of reading it that guarantees that I do that. But I've got to carry that with me. It just happens that I turned on my computer. And he said, well, then we'll get you a BlackBerry. That was my first smartphone because it's work-life balance, work-life blend kind of question.
Mhm. All right. And what do you wish you had known before you had started in this industry?
What do I wish I had known? Um, that's an interesting question. Is there something that um I guess I wish I had understood that things would change in ways I didn't expect, and I would have to understand what my best answer to the changing situation was for me. In other words, uh, there are now a choice I have to make, and I've never considered which one of those things I might actually like better or might actually be good at or something like that. So I had to know myself well enough to make choices I did not expect I would have to make.
That's really interesting. You have to be really self-aware about yourself when making these career choices and like,
Yeah, yeah. Typically, you say, "Gee, I wish my boss would or my manager would give me an assignment that excites me." And it's a ridiculous, kind of thing to think about if you think, because I'm not sure what excites me. How is somebody else going to know? So you need to understand what you want to do and what you might enjoy doing when something unexpected comes along.
question to that is like, well, maybe what would you suggest people do to like really figure out what they like before
Well,
having the opportunity to really like, try everything?
right. Well, to play an old saw, it's a really good idea to get internships. The reason for that is, um, in general, I have discovered that my mental image of what I thought an activity was like to perform the activity was very different, typically, from what it was actually like. In other words, when you actually get in and start doing it, it's not the same as what you thought it was going to be like. So when you're an intern, even though you're not really doing it, I mean, you're not doing it for career and you're not doing the, the full-on job, you at least are around people who are.
Mm.
And so you can keep your eyes open and observe, is this something that I could enjoy doing? Is this something that I see that people are happy doing? Am I a person? If I ending up doing a job like this, I'll be around people like this. Does that look like a good job? Because I think people's mental image of a situation is usually not accurate unless they've experienced it.
That is really good advice. And last question on the same line, what advice would you give somebody considering this type of job?
Um, well, let's see. I think I kind of summarized with some of the points that we talked about earlier. I mean, make sure you're good at what you do. I mean, take your lessons real seriously because even if you don't end up using a particular thing, it's great mental discipline. So be good at what you do because you have to be right when you're giving advice to people or when you're making measurements yourself. Understand yourself well enough to know how to be flexible in taking assignments and how to enjoy them if you can. You'll have to do things occasionally that you may not enjoy. That's why they call it work. But anybody that's getting a degree in earth system science or math, physics, or chemistry is not stupid, and you deserve to have a job that you like, quite a bit of the time. So understand yourself well enough to capitalize on the opportunities that present themselves, and try to be as flexible as you can as things change around you.
That is really good advice. Thank you. Any closing statements before we go?
Um, no, just that I think the PSUM mentoring program has been over the course of the mentees that I've had. I think it's been beneficial to me just to see what kinds of things people are deciding and what kind of decisions they're making. Some of the things that people are worried about or thinking about are a little different than what I would expect. And at the same time, I think some of the mentees have been pretty pretty great people, and I still have actual contact with some people from as long as 15 years ago as a result of this program. So I think it's been beneficial both ways.
That's really great. All right. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for all of your advice.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Of course.
Bye bye.